good listener. Welcome back inside a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson with you. As always, we're still lakeside here. We're still doing the TCA summer sessions in the satellite studio. Hope my voice sounded a little bit better. I know we've covered this a little bit over the last couple episodes, but got somehow a bit of a, well, I say somehow, I know exactly how. Got a bit of a bug there over the August long weekend from my nephew, who sort of out of nowhere was sneezing and coughing and whatever else. And you're like, well, he said something along the lines of, I have allergies, which I guess he must have overheard. I have seasonal allergies. My mom has seasonal allergies. Didn't really think much of it. You know, maybe just one of those terms he had picked up. But it turns out it wasn't seasonal allergies. He was sick. And by Tuesday of that week, I was sick, and my sister was sick, and it was unpleasant, and it did bad things to my voice even several days after I was done being under the weather. And so, we changed the order of things here. We had pre-recorded a couple of things to be part of the summer sessions, decided to spare you what my voice was doing and give you those right up front. So Joshua O'Connor was on the, I believe it was the Friday morning edition of the show, and then certainly on the Monday morning edition of the show, a two-parter. Love talking to that guy. Kind of a different vibe on those shows, just more of a summer hang, which I do appreciate this time of year. So go back and check those out if you haven't had the chance to hear them yet. And I apologize for my absence, but we did certainly still provide some content and hopefully spared your ears for what was kind of gross around here. Who gets sick in the middle of August? It was really irritating. The other big problem was it killed my taste buds. And I've got a couple of beers here I'd wanted to try, wanted to do the show with, and I decided not to waste them when I couldn't hardly taste anything anyway. This one comes from my buddy Shane, who I did manage to get together with. He's one of the guys I grew up with here down in Oshawa. And, we're not in Oshawa here at the family cottage at the Lakeside studio, but we're closer than we are in Ottawa. So we met up here in cottage country and had a couple of pints, and he brought a couple of things with him for me to sample or to try on the show. So we're going with one of them here today. It is from the Second Wedge Brewing Company in Uxbridge, Ontario. That's just north of Durham region and not too far west from where I'm sitting right now. This is the Electric Light German Pilsner, an even 5%. And we're going to enjoy that here as we work our way through this. On first pull, it's pretty nice. It's not quite as crisp, not quite as bitter as what you might get out of more of a Czech Pilsner. I'd stop short of calling it juicy because it's not juicy, but it does have a little bit more body than I would typically associate with like that kind of classic Czech Pilsner. But this is very nice. I do like it. And it is nice to be the first pint I'm having here now that I've got my taste buds back. So thanks to him for that. We managed to get together, like I said, try a couple of things from Kawartha Lakes Brewery when we were out over the weekend. And I don't know if it's fair for me to be giving reviews right now. Like I said, I was still I wasn't sick anymore, but my voice still kind of sucked. My taste buds still kind of sucked. But one that stood out to me from that Kawartha Lakes Brewery that I did try that day when I was out with him was the Kawartha Lakes. Oh, no, I'm going to botch it. Was it Angry Bear or Lazy Bear? It was a something bear, and it was a red ale. It was very nice. Maybe a red is malt forward enough that it was able to cut through and get to my taste buds. I did enjoy that quite a bit. So if you get a chance, it was the something bear, the Angry Bear, the Lazy Bear. It was a red ale. You'll see it. The something bear red ale, if you're interested in giving that a shot. It was very good. We're going to talk to Jeff Veillette today. You already know that. You saw it in the show title. You saw it in the show notes. We're going to talk to him a little bit about where Jake Sanderson of the Ottawa Senators fits in this newly released NHL Network list of the top 10 defensemen in the National Hockey League. We'll talk to him a little bit about whether or not there's going to be any trouble in the NHL when they go ahead and expand, which looks all but certain to be happening here over the next few years. And we'll talk to him about the offseason that it's been for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll get to that in just a second. I also should mention that Kevin Mickey from Sportsnet will co-host the Monday morning edition of the Tall Can Audio podcast with me. Looking forward to that. Really like talking to that guy. Many of you will remember him. He was doing video work over at the Olympic Games and still found time to call us from there. He's done that both from a summer and a winter games. You see him on Sportsnet Central here lots of times throughout the summer. When he's not there, he's behind the scenes doing video work and producing stuff. So always enjoy talking to him. That will be on the Monday morning edition of the podcast. And I can tell you, we have locked in a time to record our annual summer visit with the voice of the Ottawa Senators, Dean Brown. So that will be coming up here over the next week or two as well. Stick around for all of it. Make sure you're subscribed to the Tall Can Audio podcast wherever you're hearing me right now. With all that out of the way, let's finally get to it here. Returning to the show, our buddy Jeff Veillette. I'm happy to see you have survived, man, judging by your Twitter account. The apocalyptic streets of Toronto have not captured you. The killer robots, the roaming gangs, the dogs with bees in their mouth that when they bark, they shoot bees at you. I'm glad to see you're hanging tough down there, man.
Yeah, it was tough. I died 42 times on the way from Union Station to Clarkson yesterday, but we got through. That's a whole different conversation altogether. But
well, I just noticed, on your Twitter, and we all saw it. One of the prominent radio hosts in Toronto described the place that he's supposed to represent as a shithole. That was nice, and it fired up a whole conversation.
Yeah, note that person lives not in Toronto.
That's true, eh? Funny how that works.
Here very often, but everybody thinks that their city is falling apart in a war zone, whatever, because their social media algorithms tell them it's more dangerous than pretty much every major city in the Western world that has like record low crime rates right now. Not that we're problem free, but we're in safer times than we give credit for, and a lot of people don't get to enjoy the fantastic things around them as a result of that. So while everybody was telling me to be scared of the streets yesterday, I took lots of walks around uptown Toronto, downtown Toronto, Mississauga, and then played some ball hockey. And we're still in one piece today, ready to talk some puck.
If it bleeds, it leads, right? That's just the world we live in at this point. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. I do want to ask you about the offseason that the Leafs have had. I want to talk to you a little bit about some comments you made on some earlier tweets about the possibility of the NHL expanding and why it may not be as damaging to the talent pool as some people suggest. But I wanted to kick things off here, at least for our Ottawa listeners, about this list that the NHL media Twitter account put out, and we see a lot of this stuff throughout the summer, right? A lot of just content, a lot of lists, a lot of whatever else, and I try not to bite too much, but the Jake Sanderson conversation around Ottawa is always fascinating, and Ottawa's one of those smaller markets that often the fan base feels a little maybe neglected is too strong, but not properly respected, and you're just not watching enough games, and there are a lot of people in the nation's capital that believe that Jake Sanderson is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL right now, or at least should be in that conversation. And this particular list, and it's just one list, but has him at number 8, ahead of Mo Seider, which the good people of Detroit didn't appear to care for very much, behind Lane Hutson at number 6 in Montreal, which, again, the good people of Ottawa didn't care for very much, knowing that rivalry. There is always kind of I think most people lean on Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes as number 1 and 2, and then you kind of get into an interesting debate. From somebody who follows the league pretty closely, but isn't based right there in the nation's capital and isn't kind of bathing in that conversation all the time, where do you see Jake Sanderson? And when you look at a list like this that has him at 8, how does that feel to you?
Well, I got two trains of thought here. The first one is if you follow the NHL Network top 20 positional rankings at any point in any summer, it's going to drive you insane. I think they are historical for having a couple of conversation fire starters every single year. I used to take the bait. I don't look at them unless someone points them out to me now, and I don't really comment on them.
Here I am forcing you to take the bait.
Listen, that's okay. I can do one a year, and you'll be my one. At the same time, I actually don't think that top 10 is that insane. Like, this is actually one of the more reasonable rankings I've seen, and I think something to keep in mind here is just there's a lot of really good defensemen in this league right now.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Makar and Hughes are kind of seen as that 1A, 1B, or 1-2, or whatever you want to call it. Like, they're kind of given that established tier. But after that, like, I think it's well for discussion with a lot of these guys. I think being anywhere between like this 3 and 10 is interchangeable. If you want to tell me Sanderson's 3 right now, like, I don't know if that's going to be my personal answer, but like, I can understand. If you want to tell me he's 10, I can understand. If you want to tell me 8, yeah, that's fine too. Obviously, the people of Ottawa know the impact he makes on their team, and I think something to keep in mind too is they can take a lot of pride in the fact that lists right now look like this because of someone that they had previously. Like, this is very much like the post Erik Karlsson generation taking full flight.
Right.
Guys who can cover all 200 feet of the ice, can activate as 4 forwards, can release out of the D zone and O zone with ease, and really just like change the dynamic of their teams in ways that defensemen haven't in a very, very long time in this league. So even if their own personal guy isn't as high as they like on this list, I like the footprints of or the fingerprints of years past for the Sens are all over this just by nature. In terms of like where it stacks up, like I don't really see much of an issue. The only one that you can really say maybe that's high right now is having Schaefer at 7.
I thought so too.
I think that's pretty much like trying to market
like fantastic season,
a high end guy.
But
and he could be there. He could even be higher like by the end of this season.
Sure.
This isn't me being like, oh, I'm low on Schaefer. It's just it's early kind of deal. Other than that, like all these guys, like every single one of those guys could have got Norris Trophy votes this year, and it would not have been a surprise. And Sanderson's among that class. So for me, like if I'm looking at him here, I'm looking at the fact that, they put him in that 3 to 10 class, and I think that's right, rather than worrying about where he sits in that class.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think when you have a top 10 defenseman in the league as part of your franchise, I think you take it and you run. You look at any of these guys, like a Dahlin or a Heiskanen or a Seider, like you're pumped if any one of them are part of your I get it that it's the middle of August and we drill down a little bit and we're looking for hockey stuff to tear apart. I would move Sanderson ahead of Schaefer, but like you said, it's kind of a hype thing too, right? Like this is being promoted by the league, not by any objective organization. Yeah,
and not even by the league, by the league side streaming network. Like it's not even an official league ranking. It's something for their media outlet more than anything else.
This is it. And I get it if Habs fans and Sens fans want to go at it a little bit over Hudson versus Sanderson and what you value. And that's a whole other part of this, right? It's not the top 10 offensive defensemen, the top 10 two-way defensemen, the top 10. I think if you've got a Heiskanen or a Dahlin or a Sanderson or a Seider or whatever, you're pretty pumped. I see Adam Fox is outside the top 10. That is one of the most polarizing guys in the league. You've got people who swear he should be a Norris Trophy nominee every year. Other people say this isn't a top 30 defenseman in the NHL. He's no good. Like, these are just the conversations I guess we have in the summer, right?
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, that Sanderson finished 10th in Norris Trophy voting. So this ranking is technically outpacing the average media outlet, which is, again, not to give too much credit to what they do with these charts every year, but it seems like they're giving him a good grasp. Bringing up Fox, there's another good example too. There's just a lot of really good guys. Like if Sens fans want a bit of a thing to flag over, look at their cross province rivals. Like every single guy on this list would be the best defenseman that team's had in like 30 years. So
where's my boy Darren Radish? No love in the top 10 here.
Emil Andre's been erased. And where is Justin Hall?
We'll get to some of that here in a minute, man. I did want to talk to you about this idea, and it seems to be look, it nothing's locked in terms of when it's coming, but it sure seems that just about everybody believes expansion is coming to the NHL again. Talk about Houston or Austin, whether or not you're going to go back to Atlanta. At some point, this team, or this league, I guess, is going to land at 36 teams. And I've seen some people have the debate that it wears out the talent pool. And I'm a guy who follows the PWHL very closely, and this rapid explosion in number of teams there, I would say, has exposed the talent pool a little too fast. But this is very different, right? The PWHL doesn't have the AHL and the ECHL and the Russian league and the Swedish. Like, not to say there aren't women's leagues in Europe, but there are. It's different, doubling the size of your league every year as opposed to the NHL just kind of topping this off a bit more. We have seen scoring go up as they have expanded each year. I don't know if that is getting more third-pair defensemen on the ice, more unqualified fourth-liners on the ice, getting more guys who would have been third or fourth goalies in team systems on the ice more often. But you seem to have a pretty strong take that this, when it comes, even adding 4 more teams won't necessarily be a problem. What gives you that belief?
Yeah, firstly, I just want to put it out there that if Atlanta comes back, I want to be first in line to be the GM of the new Atlanta Thrashers. Everybody knows that's the end game here. I want to run the Thrashers, and that needs to be repeated everywhere that we go.
Which Canadian market gets these Thrashers 10 years later when it doesn't work for a third time?
Let's say Timmins.
All right. I know our buddy Mike Comito is still pulling for the greater Sudbury Thunder Bay area, so
that would work. Shout out 538. Rest in peace. So like I kind of look at this and I look at the way that the league's gone in the past few years, and I'm not anywhere near as stressed about diluting the talent pool as most people are. You actually brought up a really good example there in the women's leagues that I hadn't even really touched in my conversation. But you're absolutely correct that that's a much different game in the sense that, like, the women's game's still very much developing. There hasn't been a lot of resources given letting players have, like
they've gone from
all the way
nowhere
up
to
elite
play
development.
Yeah.
So the part of the reason like that level has gone so much better is because they're finally getting development resources into it. But because this is really just like the second or third generation of truly high-end women's players, there's still a pretty limited pool to pick from. So when you spread that out, and there are still players playing just semi-correct. I think it's Sweden has a pretty decent women's league out in Europe. So there is a lot of players playing in that pool there that aren't necessarily coming over either. So you're pretty limited into how many elite players, and still lots of them playing at the NCAA level as well. And they have like later curves for like what age they come in. Like KK Harvey coming in, I think, is already like 23, 24.
Yes.
And she's coming in as a generational prospect, whereas in the NHL she would already be prime age. Mm-hmm. Like just a lot of the math there is still sorting itself out. I think in time they can have these sort of expansions without it being much of a blip. But right now, obviously, that spreads out a pretty limited supply of elite players. In the NHL, I think it's a completely different story. The men's game has continued to grow so much over the last several decades, and the way that we look at it has continued to grow. You know, even kind of going back to our conversation about Sanderson and the post-Carlson generation and how many defensemen there are now who can take over the ice. There may have been one or two of those guys at a time in previous years. It's the floor for players is just so much better than it used to be. I know that one topic that came up with the expansion debate was, there's only like 5 goalies that matter in the NHL right now. And that's correct. Like I was one of the early people to be like, there's a very limited amount of goalies who truly make a difference in the league. But I don't think it's because goaltending has necessarily gotten worse. Like, I don't think these guys are worse at stopping pucks than they used to. It's that the floor has gotten a lot better. The baseline has gotten a lot better. So to stand out, it's a lot harder to have that extra layer of talent that nobody else does, especially if everyone's getting equivalent levels of instruction, not necessarily the same instruction, but equivalent levels and resources and all that. people will counter with, okay, well, save percentage is down, shooting percentage is up, goals are up. They're getting scored on more.
Yeah.
But then you go to the next layer, which is the skaters also have seen their floors rise, and also teams are changing what they're looking for at the bottom of lineups. What we're seeing in a lot of bottom sixes, fourth lines, etc., are now guys who would have been considered skilled players 20, 30 years ago. You don't have as many of those guys who are just out there to go hit somebody, have a fight, and kind of move on. There's not those outright liabilities. There's a lot of players where, like, it's normal for even your bottom of the lineup guys to play 10, 12, sometimes close to 15 minutes a game. Your third pair more than that on the defensive side. Whereas, like, we don't have time on ice for the older generations, but we have a pretty good idea that these superstars of the past were playing a considerable amounts of the game. Like when you're looking at like Gretzky, Lemieux era guys, like they're those stars are playing 30 plus minutes. I think
Sure.
Pavel Bure's absolute prime in Florida was right near the top of the time on ice era, and he was playing over half the game as a forward. Like that's just the reality of it. There was like kind of almost like tying back to this women's point, but it's at a different stage of the timeline. There was like maybe 100 people who were treating this game like we needed to be the elite best players in the world, and like doing all the proper development, training, nutrition, all that stuff, fitness, and really just like accepting that they were the stars of the league. And then there's just a bunch of guys who were kind of there. Whereas guys who are in the minor leagues today, the AHL, ECHL, would have more than easily been able to be support players years back. So I think the pool from which to pick from has gotten a lot bigger. I think the last two expansion drafts have been kind of instructive of that, and people kind of take different things from them because of the different results that the two organizations got from them. Obviously, Vegas did a spectacular job of making themselves instant contenders, not even to people's immediate understanding,
Right.
But they were able to leverage the cap space, the trade protections, all that stuff to go and get a couple more of the premium secondary pieces and kind of hit the ground running right away. Seattle did not have as much luck because teams wisened up a little bit. And
just pick what you're going to pick. I'm not making any crazy deals with you.
Yeah. And Seattle was asking for a lot too. I remember when there was talk of them trying to get like 2 firsts to not pick Mark Giordano.
Right.
It got a little bit out of hand. So they got those secondary pieces, and people will be like, okay, well, they never really
and in
took
both of the
off.
cases, like, people don't think about it because it didn't really work out. Obviously, Vegas got Fleury, and that did work out till they punctured him through the lungs from behind and whatever went on there. But Seattle also managed to get Philip Grubauer, and it didn't pan out, but like that was a good get right off the hop to have a centerpiece goaltender. Like, the rules have changed too so much in expansion that, you know, when we're talking about watering down the league, I don't think it necessarily means anymore specifically just watering down the new teams like it did to Nashville or Columbus or whatever else. It's just, you know, digging a little deeper for everybody. But if you can get a reasonably decent goaltender, and I'm with you that there are only, you know, for the most part, 5 or 8 elite goaltenders, but it's because the floor has come up, not because goaltending is terrible. So if you can just get yourself a reasonable piece, and both of those franchises manage to do it, I don't know what this will look like when you have to do it 4 more times in the next 10 years or whatever. But that's a good starting point. Like, if you can just get a competent goaltender between the pipes, you might be all right.
Exactly. And I think in a weird way, the fact that there's more talent is part of the problem for teams to hit the ground running on these drafts, in the sense that, like, Seattle never really hit that gear to become very, very good because they never got that star player. Mm-hmm. But it's also harder for teams now to kind of hit that rock bottom and build up through the draft to get the next guy that way because they're not starting off as bad either. Now, Seattle did have a high pick or two to start, and they didn't quite go as planned with Beniers and Wright and et cetera. But that's another factor that plays into it too, is their picks didn't hit. Vegas just decided that picks didn't matter and immediately just started trading everybody to keep loading up, which again is them being smart. Like they had floor pieces to work with. They had a few that popped. because it turns out that a lot of guys playing on second, third, sometimes not even in the league lines can make impacts in the lineup.
Yeah, when
not
given
even
an
in the league.
opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, even in the league. Shout out to the Pittsburgh Penguins for their most recent transaction to try to replicate this with Koivunen in the 8-year deal. So like but that's kind of part of it too. Like somebody brought up to me, it's like, do you really think that this league is capable of losing talent if teams are signing guys who played half the season in the AHL to 8-year deals? And I'm like, no, that's kind of the point, is the teams are seeing guys who are playing half the year in the AHL and being like, yeah, I mean, I think if we play him a few more minutes up top, he could be a middle six forward. If there's still lots of those guys across the minor levels and across teams' depth charts, like I don't think it's unreasonable to think that you can spread it out a little bit more. Now, like, will those expansion teams have the star power? You can say no, but this is kind of how you create more star power too, is by kind of weakening that floor, by expanding the league. It gives players a little bit more room to separate that they haven't had as much as past generations.
Well, it reminds me a little, like, we're sitting here as you and I are having this conversation in the middle of August. Patrick Laine is not employed. Now, Patrick Laine has been through some things and he's struggled a little bit, but like, that guy doesn't have a job right now. And if there were 2 more teams in the league, 4 more teams, somebody is inviting that guy at least to camp and giving him a 1 or 2 year deal and just saying, you know what, you are here to be our 38-year-old Ovi, if nothing else. Like, we are counting on you to be nothing more than the guy who stands on the circle on the power play, and we can get 18, 22, 25 goals out of you doing that kind of thing. It's sort of Eli Tolvanen in Nashville was just drowning, and Seattle brings him on. Is he ever going to be what most people thought he was going to be? Doesn't look like it, but it sure looks like he's a perfectly useful middle six winger. There are players out there, man, as you're properly, sort of framing, that just don't have a spot right now, and that could easily help form a couple more rosters.
Yeah, exactly. Teams don't feel they need to take those risks right now because there's so much in everyone's depth charts that are capable of playing hockey. You add what is it, 44 more roster spots. I don't think that really changes the calculus that much. I don't think it makes it so you've got players who can't hang in the league not playing. It's more than attainable to add a few more of these, like, middle of the lineup, edge of the lineup guys.
I think sometimes we just have to zoom out, right?
Yeah,
there are 800 guys in the league. Are 40 more jobs really going to be that drastically different, spread across 36 teams? I don't know, right? Like, it's probably not going to be noticeably different.
And if you look at it, everybody's glory years that they like to talk about and be nostalgic about are when the league was rapidly expanding and creating all this separation between stars and scrubs anyway. So, like, it's easy to say now, there's not enough of it, but you liked it best when you were watching a guy who had spent his entire life trying to be the best was going up against a guy who's just there because it's a better paycheck than the car dealership. So, like, now everybody wants to be elite, and some guys aren't, some guys aren't. But you have thousands of them to pick from, and I don't think that there's I don't think that there's only 800 or so guys that can survive in this league. Now, be great in this league is obviously a different story, but, like, just be baseline guys. I think there's lots of room to keep going. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean that I'm like, hell yeah, the league needs to expand either. Obviously, I think a lot of this is just a bit of a cash grab, and, like, it's just going to make the schedules longer. Like, there's lots of other things to talk about within this that
100%. Whether expansion is a good idea or not is a different question. But can the league survive the talent drain? Yes.
Yeah. Because that seems to be everyone's number one concern, when I think it's actually, like, the bottom line concern. Yeah. I'd be more worried about the business, the schedule, especially the schedule terrifies me. My dream would be, if they're going 36, that they actually make this season shorter make it 70 games. Everybody faces each other twice, like it's European soccer, and we just call it that. But that's about as likely to happen as a meteor
sir,
hitting my window in the next 5
disappointed,
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Leafs. Speaking of disappointment, and it's look, last season was a disappointment, obviously, and I don't know what to make of this offseason. I like that they were bold. I do like that we're going to try and maximize here the 2 years left that we have Austin Matthews. And almost all of these 17 guys they have signed to be bottom six forwards are on 2-year deals. And I think that makes sense. Either Austin Matthews is going to reestablish himself as a superstar and re-up, at which point you can swap those guys out for better guys if you need to. He's going to reestablish himself as a superstar and leave, at which point you're probably rebuilding anyway and want all those guys to leave. Or he's just going to kind of stick around being a 35-goal guy. His body has failed him or whatever else, at which point it's kind of the same outcome. You're not going to be a contender here anytime soon. And so I don't hate the term on any of these deals, but as I look at it, man, it's your Brendan Duhaimes and your Colton Sissons and your Teddy Blugers and your... Like, there's some useful pieces, but it feels like it's a lot of the same pieces. I also worry a little bit about the fact that your biggest three bets, Darren Radish, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Nick Paul, come from two very smart front offices. Not infallible, but very smart. And they have decided they're prepared to let those three players walk, and you have decided, I'm going to hook my future to those guys. We can drill down in a few different places here, but in a general sense, looking at what the Leafs have done this offseason, what did you make of it?
I mean, it's a mixed bag, and I know I've taken some heat for calling it a bit of a mixed bag, but look, I see kind of where they're going with some of this. I do really like the bet on Radish. I think the team is in a position where they need an extra dynamic defenseman on that blue line. Puck moving, as I've been complaining for 10 years, has been a problem, and even if he doesn't produce at the same point clip as he has in recent years, his underlying numbers suggest that he's a really strong transition guy. Obviously, everybody's really attracted to that slap shot, which I don't know means as much in 2026 as people would like it to, but it doesn't hurt to have it.
It's our new Aya Frady.
Yeah, or Brian McCabe, or any other, again, these are power plays that worked slightly differently. But not the worst thing to have. Evan Bouchard still gets something out of it. Shea Weber used to get something out of it. Cale Makar comes in a little bit closer, but he sometimes uses...
at least give a penalty killer something else to worry about, so they can't just stand on Willie and Matthews, right?
Right, exactly. I like the trade with Philadelphia. I don't know if Emil Andre is going to be one of those pop-off candidates, but he at least is a floor raiser and somebody, again, who's capable of moving pucks between zones. And I'm always in a state of always trade your goalie. If you don't have one of the five guys that we alluded to before, then it's not really worth it to be committing significant money in term. Doubly so when they have injury histories. So that one makes sense to me. Nick Paul, I didn't really mind either. I think he's a really solid two-way forward. I do worry a little bit about how Hildeby does in Tampa. Everyone will kind of look at that, and if he succeeds, it'll be one of those you rue the day kind of deals. But it's also, again, goalies. You don't know. You don't know how things are going to translate, and they don't usually have a ton of market value, so that's fine. It's the signings beyond Radish where I get a little bit concerned. As you alluded to, it's a lot of the same. Like, we're going to get defensive guys who kind of kill play and try to slow pace down. I know a lot of people say, okay, well, yes, that's true, but takes defensive zone starts off of Matthews, which I'm not super convinced that it does in the areas where it actually matters. It might in November, but when you're in April, when you're in the playoffs and you've got a big face off, and it's like Barkov or Point or whoever. Like, you're not like, oh yeah, sweet, time to put out Langford. One goal game. I trust Colton Sissons.
Right.
No disrespect to Sissons, Blueger, Duhame, et cetera. But like, those are not the guys that you put on, as proven by the fact that every freaking playoffs they've played the last few years, it's been Matthews or Tavares playing shutdown minutes, because even when they get when they get all these defensive guys, they still need baseline players to put the puck the other way. Like, being able to withstand the defensive zone minutes doesn't change the fact that they need to get out of that zone. And I don't know how much this accomplishes that. Jack Roslovic might be a little bit of a help in that direction, and I think that's nice. That's solid. We'll see where that one goes. But it's also not like the most exciting one of the signing in the world that they could have made either.
Look, I don't have to tell you, Jeff, like, you've been all over this for a long time, that the Leafs book for 5, 6, 7 straight years now has been get less offensive and more defensively sound, get bigger, get heavier, get strong. Yeah. And this still feels a little like that. Like, they didn't bring in score. And look, I'm not trying to roast them too hard here. There wasn't a ton available in terms of scoring help on the free agent market. But this feels like you've built 2 more bottom 6 lines that aren't going to contribute. And I don't know. I was a big Jeff Veillette Kool-Aid sipper on John Tavares, and he made it all the way through that contract, doing everything you would want him to do, and he took the hometown discount, and you love him for that. At some point, he can't be second-line center anymore, and there is no one else coming. Like, you don't want Nick Paul at 2C. They haven't solved that issue. Like, at some point, John Tavares will go off a cliff. I don't know if it's this year or not. And at $4 million, like, it's not like it's going to be a contract problem, but whether you're overpaying him or not, you need a second line center. I don't know if they're any better this year.
Right, and they put themselves in a position where they very quickly took themselves out of being in any team's conversations. That's the part that really killed me, is like, sure, I can get kind of spinning back around to these same types of players or whatever. I don't know if they needed to cap themselves out by 5:30 or 4:30 p.m. on July 1st. That's usually where teams
fine. Toss a Zach McEwen in the shopping cart. Why not? Let's go.
And yeah, like, seriously, like that's kind of like, as the off season goes, as you get closer to camp, you start seeing guys who are willing to take to take lesser deals that are in the same tier of player, or somebody shakes loose and a team needs to move on from a guy. You can pounce on, like. And sometimes those could be big guys. I remember one of the big things about the 2025 deadline, I think it's 25, the Lawton and Carlo one, and everyone was like, oh, they needed to get somebody, and they gave up all these picks, and then like 2 months later, you have no adoption on the trade market for the picks that you just gave up.
Yep.
You take yourselves out of those opportunities. You can't necessarily sit on that forever. I understand that. But you can sit on it for longer than 4 hours after you've done cap space for the first time in 10 years. And to come out of it and not really have a lot in the needle moving territory. And we haven't even touched the elephant between the pipes yet.
Right.
It just felt like they were needing to, that they had a checklist and they were racing to accomplish it. And I don't really know, if that plays to their favor, especially if this team starts to turn a corner, and you then now need to look at, okay, well, our baseline is back. Now it's time to start buying. All of a sudden, you really have no flexibility.
Yeah.
Come trade deadline. Like, yeah, it's great that these are only 2 years and these are not going to be problems in 2030 or whatever. But they might be problems in February if the things that you think, or that the optimistic people are hoping for rebounds, like Matthews being healthy. Bobrovsky playing well, all that stuff. If all that stuff clicks and you're ready to go, you really don't have much wiggle room to go with, because you paid for premium versions of bottom lineup guys that you could have gotten basically 90% of the player for 30% of the cost.
Well, you've got, as you referenced there, now a 37-year-old starting goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but his last couple regular seasons have not been great. You've got his former backup in Florida still here, Anthony Stolarz, who struggles to stay healthy. I do think there's a certain amount of blame to be placed on the Leafs here over the last 2 years when when one of the guys go down, they just forget that the other guy's injury prone too, and just play him 12 in a row anyway, even though we know they can't handle it. So hopefully that has been a lesson learned here. But the regular season has also now become 2 games longer, and I assume we're going to see Atimov here in the NHL this year at different points. I don't know how often they're going to go with 3 goalies, but just in a general sense, man, like, is this the Achilles heel of the Leafs? Is it goal? Like, I guess there's a possibility it could be a strong suit. I don't think that's what's coming, though. There's depth. I don't know how much it holds up. But
it just feels like a lot of risk to take for not a lot of return. Like, to your point, yes, the Toronto goaltending situation last year was not the healthiest, nor was it the year before, really.
Yeah.
But this was kind of the benefit of having like 3-4 of these guys in the system. They're all relatively cheap. You kind of were able to consistently keep piecemeal, and they kept putting up like respectable, above expected, above league average numbers. They had enough in there, and they weren't spending a lot on it. Now they've made their tandem one of the more expensive ones in the league, and it's being driven by a guy who's really on the wrong side of 30. I know that the new strength and conditioning coach went on that thing about him being like younger biologically or whatever.
Having not yet stepped in a gym with him, like, come on, man.
I mean, I'm not gonna like. Who knows? Maybe they work together at some point. I'm not gonna go too far into those weeds, but like, it's just. It's a tough thing to say, and I know that the people who watched a lot of Bob's tape last year are more bearish than the people who just kind of look at Florida being hurt, because you hear commonly like, oh well, I mean, they didn't have Barkov last year, or they didn't have Chuck for lots of last year, and it's like, newsflash, guys, Barkov doesn't play for anybody else. Barkov is not on the Leafs roster. Chuck's not on the Leafs roster. They have guys you're hoping can make those make similar-ish impacts, but we're also wondering if those guys are going to be back to where they want it to be anyway. So, like, what are we talking about here? It seems like with Bobrovsky, the fact that he's been healthy and he's starting to go back through this decline is almost the more concerning bit, because he can't go and say, oh, he's been derailed by an injury, that he's had a setback that slowed him down. Like, goalie people I've talked to are saying that it looks like, going through the tape, it's more decision making is starting to fall behind there too, and that to me is a serious concern. The fact that, like, yes, the Panthers were what they were last year, but Daniil Tarasov played 30 games for them. His save percentage was 20 points higher. I can't say that it's just the team if the backup's outperforming him over that big of a sample. It's just a lot to worry about for a guy his age, and a guy who, like, you're hoping come playoff time he steps it up. But even like his playoff history, yes, I can't sit here and dismiss 2 Stanley Cups, but then you kind of go through the series, and like, so much of like the raw number comes from just like a handful of rounds, and like 2 of them are against Toronto Maple Leafs. Newsflash: if he's playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he can't stop the Toronto. I mean, he could. Not in the way we'd want him to, though. He can't reap the rewards on that. And the other team he always stopped is Carolina, and they figured out how to put the puck in the net this year. So I don't know. It's a lot to ask, especially at his age. Like, I did a piece on this right after they signed him, where I looked at every goalie over 38 in the post-cap era, because a common refrain was like, "Oh, well, we've signed Eddie Belfour.
Let's go."
and it worked out, but like, that's 2003, and he signed a 3-year deal, just like Bob. And by the end of it, you were like, we should have probably bought that out over the lockout.
They were starting J.S. Aubin on back-to-back nights against Montreal, fighting for their playoff lives by the end of it. Like, they were not loving it anymore.
Yeah, his third year, he had a negative 13.3 goals saved above average.
Yep.
And he's one of the better success stories in this group. There's not a lot of guys who maintained it. Like, Hasek did it, but he's Hasek.
Yeah.
Like, Luongo did it for a year when he was 38, and he, as one of the greatest goalies of all time, He withered in his age 39 year and had to call it quits right after that because he had nothing left in the tank. And that's a guy who was able to maintain heavy workloads for the longest time until he wasn't. It isn't an easy challenge. If he's able to do it, obviously, like, it cements him. Like, I think he's already a Hall of Famer as it is, but it cements him in like that rare air kind of like 3 to 20 territory for goalies all time. But it's just a lot to ask, and for Toronto to be like, okay, well, we're gonna give him 3 years to take a crack at it it's a lot. Like, kind of tying it back to what we're talking about with paying a premium for fourth liners. Like, this is a conversation that could have been had too. Is like, do you give Bob $10 million for 1 year and then maybe just grab a couple of $1 million guys instead of the multi years that you went with, or you just don't do it. Like, you run with Wall and Stolarz and see where it goes, and Hildeby or Akiyama below them. Especially same team that's replacing all their medical and strength and conditioning staff. Like, if you think that these guys haven't been healthy, maybe, and you think that you have guys who are going to make your team healthier, maybe it's staff, maybe it's worth working with them and seeing where that goes. Like, I'm just kind of throwing stuff at the wall here right now, but like, it just feels like a risk they didn't necessarily have to make, but it's something that sends a message that they mean business. And maybe that's something that the organization is more concerned about right now, is looking like they're trying more than finding unique solutions to get better, which at times kind of feels emblematic of the last few years, where they'll chase after safe names instead of trying to be creative with how they win. It's kind of not necessarily the same problem, but a rhyming version of what we've seen year after year.
I think there's something to that. We have gone through this entire conversation with quite reasonable concerns, but there is one very bright spot that neither of us have touched on yet, and they did get the first overall pick. They do bring in Gavin McKenna, and I doubt he solves the goaltending problems, but he can be a part of both short-term and long-term getting this thing going. I'm curious. They were asking me, I was on TSN 1200 yesterday, and they were asking me about how he might fit in and how he might be used. And it's an interesting question. Do you want to throw him to the Wolves right away, playing on Matthews' wing as sort of new Marner light, despite the fact that obviously he doesn't do a lot of the other things that Marner does, but immediately have him facing top competition? Do you want him playing with Tavares in what will not be a very good defensive line, especially if you've got Willie on the other side, just heavily sheltered? I can't imagine you want to put, like, whatever they've brought in Nick Paul to do on the third line is going to be with a significant defensive responsibility. Like, how would you look to use him and drop him into this lineup as he's getting his feet underneath him?
Firstly, shout out to TSN 1200, just on the sense that we're losing some radio stations around the country the last couple of months. I saw that Calgary is getting something new today, which is
great news,
which is fantastic news. But yeah, shout out to 1200. With McKenna, I think you're kind of beholden to give him the opportunity to start up top. One, as we keep alluding to, like, you want to get Matthews back in form, and you want to get him comfortable. You want to get him wanting to be in this for the long haul again. Well, how much he's out or in, like, no one actually knows, so that might be a moot point. But but getting his groove back to me is even more important. And from everything we've seen in McKenna and junior and college, etc., this is a very dynamic winger who likes to make plays and get the puck to elite shooters when he can. Whether he's going to be capable of doing it right away is a good question, but at the same time, if he's not a star right away, that's not unfamiliar territory for Matthews to have on his side anyway. And I don't necessarily mean that in like a derogatory way. He's had a lot of like complimentary to B plus players on his side and done well with them over the years. Sure. He doesn't necessarily, like, as much as people like to talk about about his impacts with Marner or Nylander or whatever. Like, he's found ways to make
spent the first several years with your Connor Browns and Kasperi Kapanens.
Exactly. Early career Zach Hyman, who's still figuring it out.
Yep.
He had great success with Mike Bunting. Like, there's a value to someone who's good enough to start, and letting McKenna find his groove that way, if that's what it is, and if it's that he's ready, then it's even better. I think, to your point, in terms of like defensive responsibility and stuff, that also makes more sense for him to be with Matthews too, because McKenna's not the strongest defensive winger there is in this league right now, and he especially won't be as a teenager.
Right.
And as much as I like JT and Willie, like they're definitely not winning any selfies anytime soon. There was a time when John would have got votes, but like we got to temper the expectations at soon to be 36. And Willie, we tempered that expectation like 5 seconds into his first shift. God love him, but that's not happening. So that line might be a little all gas, no brakes, which on one hand is my kind of hockey.
Offensive zone starts. Let's go.
Yeah. But when this team is where it is right now and kind of needs to find a way to control pucks again, maybe you want to spread that out a little bit.
Yeah.
The main point is it's going to be top 6 for sure, and this is the beauty of having training camp and exhibition games, and
only 4 this year.
Start of the year. Yeah, but you can play him in all 4 like that, and they probably will.
And now that I say that, did I not read that there's 4 games, but they're on 2 nights? Are they doing 2 split squad games? Maybe I saw.
Okay, so then maybe you can't.
It'll be harder for him to play.
I'm not gonna lie. We're still in the stage of the year where I'm not double checking.
This is it. Yeah. No, it's mid-August.
So if I got that wrong, somebody please throw a digital.
Maybe I did. I thought I remembered. So
either way, they're going to give him every opportunity to figure out what he is.
Yep.
In training camp, and then you can kind of work backwards. I don't think it's super imperative on us to know exactly where he slots in the lineup today. And even once they figure out where he starts, that doesn't need to be permanent. It doesn't need to be rigid. Sometimes the rigidity is the problem. Trying him in a couple of different spots might be what's best for rounding out his game and making him more familiar with the league.
As we wrap up here, it sounds like you're gearing up to maybe start doing a little bit more writing than you've done over the last year or two. Can you tell us about kind of what you've already started and what we can look forward to this season? Yeah,
I mean, if you've been on my social media profiles, you've probably seen that I spent a couple of months there after my junior hockey season wrapped up, covering the Marlies again during their Calder Cup run, doing some reactions, which is really interesting. I kind of like left there right after they won their first championship, after basically being on that beat for the better part of a decade. Was there for like half the season that followed, and then kind of tapered off. And then as soon as I come back, they go on this Cinderella
full
run,
circle,
that no one really expected. So clearly, I'm the good luck charm. They best have me back next year. No, that'll be fun. But yeah, so I think for me, I look at a lot of the written media landscape right now, and I'm kind of bearish on where it is, especially in Toronto. It feels like a lot of the blogosphere has moved on. A lot of, basically all of the mainstream sphere is like paywalled or like low effort content or like clickbait chasing, tossed to an intern generated by AI, that kind of stuff. It's just really hard to find responsible content, not necessarily always correct content, but people kind of doing the research, asking questions, like trying to get creative with it and trying to get different perspectives. Yeah. So I want to get myself more involved in that again. And I think that's the goal for next year. Like I said, if you want to read some of the stuff that I had wrote over the spring and very early summer, if you go on any of my profiles, you should be able to find a link. It's Hockey and Paranoid Times, a riff off the Our Lady Peace album, Hockey and Paranoid Times, or hockeyipt.com. I haven't done anything. I haven't written anything there in like a month or so, just because I've been enjoying the summer and working on the next project. But I expect to have a very Toronto-centric platform out in the next month or so. It
is strange, man. In a market the size of Toronto, the biggest hockey market in the world, I routinely find myself, and look, I'm not trying to bury anybody. It's not saying there's no good work out there. There is, but I'm amazed at how hard I find it to find good quality writing, to find good quality podcasts that aren't just kind of chasing, like you said, trying to make crazy viral content every morning or, clickbaity kind of stuff. In a market the size of Toronto, it shouldn't be this hard to find good quality writing about the team. And I find I struggle.
I think I don't know if, I think Toronto has an especially tough time with this, but not like an exclusively tough time with this. I think a lot of this is the way that the sports media and general media and online in general landscape is. Like if you try Google searching for anything lately, it's impossible to find real content. You have to type 1,000 keywords to kind of steer you into the right direction, at which point that means you probably know what you're looking for as it is. But kind of spinning back here, like people are trying to find ways to stand out, and right now it's not standing out with the work that they make, but the methods that they use, and that's a lot of fighting algorithms and trying to break through on social media that is a lot more gamified than it used to be. It's no longer just you throw your timeline out there and the right people see it, you go the right way. Now you have to be posting at certain times. You have to be sharing things that are exactly this long. Capture your attention in X Y seconds. Keywords, all that stuff. It's tough, and I think because of that, people have kind of lost sight of what they're putting out. I have no doubt that there's talent and there's curiosity and there's interest in this city and across the landscape. It's just not necessarily rewarded, or people who are capable of doing it are chasing other things because they feel that's the only way to stand out. Like I realized that whatever I'm going to put out is going to kind of fly against that grain, and it's going to be a risk in doing so. Like I would not be surprised if like the traffic numbers to start are not to the standard that most people would hope for in putting out a project like this. It's going to be a slow burn to try to get people interested in something. Even on
a show like this, like I'm not a guy who likes to yell and scream and make whatever, and no shade on those who are making a career doing it. That's not me. I'm not great at clipping things and making viral videos. Like I'm not good at social media. I think the show I do is reasonably good. It's fine. I don't think it's the best in the world. I don't think it's terrible, but it's hard to, if you're not willing to just chase down, okay, what are the keywords you use this time? And like you said, post at this hour and on this, TikTok or whatever. I'm just a guy who wants to sit down and talk to interesting people about sports. I don't have time to get into the rest of this nonsense. And unfortunately, the rest of this nonsense has become really important.
It has, but I think over time people are going to get tired of it. I think the market is starting to correct again, where people just want to consume things that interest them. They're willing to dig in, find a place that they know is going to consistently give them something, and follow along with it once more. Attracting new people is going to be it's going to be the challenge when you go up against these streams, but as this happens more and more, and we see it in so many angles of life, people are canceling subscriptions, going back to physical media. There's a lot more pushback on generative AI than there was a year or two ago. And who knows how long those companies are going to last in the long term. A topic that's way above our pay grade here, but
100%. People just want stuff that's real.
But it's a reality. Yeah, exactly. People want stuff that's real, and it's getting harder for them to navigate the seas of the internet right now. And I think if there's a few of us who are willing to kind of throw it back and deliver something that isn't necessarily exactly what was done 10, 15 years ago, but brings a lot of those like simple concepts back. Well, also the research within the actual work it takes the modern approach. I think there's a market for that. I'm going to bet on that, and we're going to see where that takes us. Might not be an immediate quick, but I know I'm going to have fun doing it. So that's my first priority, and we go from there.
It's Hockey in Paranoid Times. We will link to it in the show notes at tallcanaudio.com or in whatever app you're hearing us. Always a bit of a hockey desert in August, Jeff. I appreciate you coming in here and or coming on and helping me find a little content, even if it is some of that NHL Network clickbait stuff, and just working through some things here today, man. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine. I'm looking forward to the top 20 Jeff appearances at some point. I'm going to be very disappointed when my favorite one is ranked number 8.
Well, we'll give you a vote at least, right?
Please don't.
All right, there goes Jeff. I always like talking to Jeff. A really bright guy. He's got kind of a different take. He's able to zoom out on things a little bit, like even things like expansion. When you talk about adding 4 teams to the NHL, it seems like a lot, and it is, but you're talking about a league that already has over 800 players in it, and you've got guys in Europe, and you've got guys in the AHL. How dramatic is the step down really going to be going from 32 to 36? There will be one, but will it be one that you will notice every night when you're watching the game? I sincerely doubt it, right? When the league was jumping from 6 teams to 12 teams and up to 18 teams, and then they got to 21 and hung out there for a while, and then decided we badly need to get to 30. Like, it doesn't really change your enjoyment of the game as you're watching it night to night. So he's the first guy I really saw kind of tackle that as it sort of became a point of debate here over the last few weeks on Twitter, where all the most reasonable debates happen. So anyway, was glad we were able to touch base with him. If you're looking to follow along with where he's going to be writing, as I said, we will link to it in the show notes at tallcanaudio.com or in your podcast app. It's Hockey in Paranoid Times, as he said, kind of a take on the Arletty Peace album title, which was kind of fun. So thank you so much for checking this one out and joining us here today. Like I said, coming up, you're going to hear from Kevin Mickey on Monday morning. That's going to be a lot of fun as he sits in to do kind of the Monday morning drop. Dean Brown coming up. We got some other irons in the fire too, but I've been burned a couple of times by those irons in fires, so I'm not announcing them until they are locked in, but those of you who have been here for a few years know some of the things we typically get done here over the summer, so stick around for that. It's coming, and we can finish the summer strong here. So as I said, thanks for listening. My name is Mal Robinson. We will talk to you all on the next one.